Breaking news. NATO's radical new concept war with China. Here we come. After the Cold War, NATO has acted like an outdated organization well past its sell-by date. NATO, looking for a new objective after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact, decided in the late 1990s to support the Clinton administration's efforts to militarize human rights. With the threat of global communism no longer present, NATO recast itself as a team of armed Atlanticist superheroes to continue its 40-year mission. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was prepared to use force wherever injustice, as defined by Washington's neocons, existed. No one in the U.S. military-industrial complex was more pleased. They have found a sure bet to keep the money flowing to all the Beltway think tanks they have been lavishly funding. Money, not safety, was the driving factor. Yugoslavia in 1999 served as NATO's human rights superhero trial run. It was a terrible, unnecessary disaster to everyone except NATO and its neocon handlers in Washington and many European capitals. Many hundreds of civilians were killed, infrastructure was destroyed, and uranium-tipped ammunition will continue to poison the landscape for generations after 78 days of bombing a country that did not threaten NATO. In a recent interview, tennis great Novak Djokovic recalled having to leave his grandfather's house in the middle of the night to escape NATO bombing. How horrible! Then, NATO supported efforts to topple Libya's Gaddafi government. The corporate media repeated the neoconservatives' false claims that the human rights problems in Libya could be solved by bombing the country, killing its people, and overthrowing its government. NATO bombings, as was to be expected, did not resolve Libya's problems but instead made them much worse. It's no surprise that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and the neocons are avoiding discussing Libya, what with its current state of anarchy, civil war, terrorism, slave markets, and crushing poverty. Following a string of failures too numerous to list here, the Washington, D.C.-controlled NATO decided in 2014 to go all in and make Russia the target of a regime change. The first step was completed by Victoria Nuland and the other neocons, who overthrew the democratically elected Ukrainian government. Following this came 8 years of massive NATO military aid to Ukraine's coup government in order to fight Russia. The final straw was when Russia in 2022 asked for and was denied permission to negotiate a European security agreement to stop NATO armies from circling its border. NATO has been about as successful in Ukraine as it was in Libya, despite the mainstream media and U.S. government propaganda to the contrary. Journalists like Seymour Hersh and others have documented massive corruption amounting to hundreds of billions of dollars. Russia, this time around NATO's target, is armed to the teeth with nukes and sees this proxy war as essential to its very survival. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, has decided to start a conflict with China, despite its history of failure, possibly to divert attention away from its disaster in Ukraine. Last week, NATO made an announcement that its first office in Asia would be located in Japan. Is Taiwan's membership in NATO up next? Will Taiwan willingly serve as NATO's newest, Ukraine, laying itself waste to China in order to sat NATO's insatiable lust for war? In 2024, we can only pray that the United States will choose a president who will put an end to NATO's murderous world tour.